When you think of slavery, your mind probably goes right to the obvious, the Atlantic slave trade. People, usually African, in shackles being led onto ships to foreign lands, or of whips and horrible labor. We all know that kind of slavery was pretty much abolished in the 19th century. The US, of course, ended its slave trade in 1863 following its Civil War. Slavery is a thing of the past, or is it? You may be surprised that slavery still exists today. The International Labor Organization reports that nearly 30 million people worldwide can be defined as slaves. However, modern slavery might not be what you expect. You see, modern slavery really doesn't fit the traditional idea of one race imprisoning another. People don't transport entire populations across the sea, as in colonial times, or even keep war prisoners like in ancient Rome and Greece. Instead, contemporary slavery can be much more subtle in definition. The most common form of slavery in the world today is debt bondage. Debt bondage occurs when a person borrows money from a wealthier individual or organization. Unable to repay them, the person offers up his or her services in exchange. Many of these agreements are seasonal, lasting for a period of harvest or production. Many more, however, are much lengthier situations. The agreement is often tweaked little by little by the employer, so that the worker ends up working for much longer to repay the sum of money. With little worker education and no written agreements, in some extreme cases, the sum of money can even go up if the employer charges for use of tools, facility, and land. This means that the worker cannot repay his debts and is required to borrow even more money in order to attain necessities. Sometimes workers' debts are passed on to their children when they die, depending on the employer. This form of servitude is most prevalent in India, home to 14 million, or nearly half of the world's modern slaves in 2013. Debt bondage is influenced heavily by the ancient caste system, which, although legally abolished, still influences social position. The untouchables, the lowest caste, are most often impoverished in northern India and were forced to work for more wealthier people. Also, literacy rates and the government influence are much less prevalent in the northern than in the southern portion in India, making it easier for people to be taken advantage of. Many people, including children, are forced to work in agriculture and in more industrialized areas such as brick kilns and factories. Because India is a growing capitalist country, its commercial markets are able to flourish on cheap labor. As the wealthy grow richer, the poorer get poorer. This same type of internal debt labor is prevalent throughout South Asia, the Philippines, and much of China for similar reasons.
Another form of debt bondage is heavily influenced by human trafficking. Imagine yourself a poor Thai villager. In order to support your family, you wish to find a job in Japan, whose markets are flourishing. You hear from a friend about a local travel agent that can arrange passage to Japan. The agent promises you a safe passage and agrees to take care of any legal matters when getting you over the border. You travel to Japan, where you are taken to a hotel for a few days. There, you are informed of how much the trip costed. You realize that you cannot possibly pay that amount of money. The traffickers agree to let you work on one of their fishing boats until your debt is paid. Over time, you realize that the debt is simply not going to be paid off. You cannot run to the Japanese authorities because you lack proper immigration status and will be jailed, deported, or both by Japanese authorities. This situation is most prevalent in Southeast Asia, where 11.7 million people are trafficked into debt situations, according to an International Labor Organization report. Especially between Thailand and Japan, large numbers of women in this situation are sold into prostitution in underground urban brothels. Because Japanese authorities are unwilling to cooperate with anti-trafficking Thai organizations, this type of exchange is increasingly hard to prevent in Southeast Asia. So if slavery still exists today, what have people done about it? Fortunately, many anti-slavery organizations exist, such as the British-based Anti-Slavery International, around since 1839. These programs are largely lobby groups petitioning for government action and regulation of forced labor. They influence and fund groups within areas of concern in order to improve labor conditions and agreements. The U.S. Department of State, through the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or TVPA, tracks how other countries comply with international slavery laws and ranks them in tiers based on how severe the problem of slavery is in that area.
You're still probably wondering, what can I do? Well, for one thing, tell people about modern slavery. Increased awareness always supports a cause.
Secondly, support nonprofit organizations such as Anti-Slavery International, mentioned earlier. Fundraise, participate in events, and help them spread the message.
Furthermore, you can organize support yourself. Write to your congressman or representative. Organize a meeting to discuss your concern. Gather others to demonstrate the horrors of modern slavery.
Unlike many, you are free. Use it.